All right, my friend, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are
Okay,
you doing, Kendall?
I'm doing awesome, awesome. Our weather is actually almost desert beautiful out here right now.
Oh, is it? Yeah, I heard it was foggy there this morning, though. I don't know if you got any of that.
It was just a teeny bit foggy. We're in
Yeah,
the low 80s and it's blue skies. It's gorgeous out here.
nice. Yeah, same
Mhm.
here.
Okay, cool. So please introduce yourself and give us
Uh,
a little bit of background.
I'm Paul Kaplan, and I run a real estate team out here in the desert. I've been here for 20 years, moved here from Pasadena around 2001. And I have a team of about 30 agents, and we cover all over the desert. So we've are usually ranked number 2 in sales in our district, and then we just recently merged with Glendale Homes, which was number 1. So now we're kind of a combined effort in both.
Now you're the big bag Mac Daddy in the Palm Springs
Absolutely, yeah.
area.
I'm still the number one. And also, we're an independent broker too, which is great, which I like.
Yeah,
So,
which is nice.
uh,
Obviously, I appreciate independent brokers, being one myself.
right,
Right,
exactly.
exactly.
We
So
have to support.
exactly. So the purpose of the show is to help inform people who may not be that familiar with the Palm Springs area, other than maybe visiting on a weekend or what have you,
Sure.
to help them to understand what it would look like if they decided to pull up stakes and live in the Coachella Valley full time, maybe retire there,
Sure.
and maybe just have a second home, that sort of a thing, right?
Yeah. Historically, we've been known as a second home community, but more and more, we're becoming more of a year-round community.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think you have the baby boomers are retiring. That's one key element.
Right.
So people coming here from all over the country wanting a warm climate to for retirement. But we're also getting a lot of people that can't afford LA. LA is their biggest feeder market. So you know how expensive things are there. So now many people can work remotely, actually. So we've there's been more people coming here buying their first home here, maybe still renting in LA, but then coming
Mhm.
out maybe they can work virtually 3 or 4 days a week out, or
Right.
on the
Right.
weekends or
Actually, that's one
so
of the things
that's
we teach our first time buyers is sometimes you want to
yeah.
buy your second home first.
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of the times it's, especially coming from the LA market or San Diego, it's you get more for your money out here. It's
Right.
easier to qualify for a lot of people.
Well, let's launch into that. So, what does a middle class person typically buy? What does that house look like? What does it cost? Where is it located?
Yeah. Well, there's so many different housing options out here. So, it could go from, you can still get condos here from the low 100s, a little 1-bedroom condo. Or, if you're looking for like an average 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in Palm Springs, you're probably looking, I would say around 5 to 600,000 now is average.
Mhm.
But you can go to some of the outlying cities because when you think of Palm Springs, people don't often realize that there's 9 or 10 different cities out here.
Sure.
So adjacent to Palm Springs is Cathedral City, and you can probably, the houses are less expensive there. You can probably get a basic 3-bedroom, 2-bath home with a pool for probably under 400,000. Where in
Wow.
Palm Springs you're going to be looking at 600,000.
Okay.
Palm Desert would probably be, maybe 500,000. So there, depending on your price point, there's some options, and it really depends on where you want to be. And the biggest question we have is like, well, what do you want your lifestyle to be here? There's a different culture basically depending on the city that you're moving
Well,
to.
let's talk a little bit about that. I actually vacationed out in the Palm Springs area for my birthday last year. We went to the
Oh,
Integratron. The
yeah.
Integratron is the coolest thing ever.
Oh, I haven't done that yet. It's on my bucket list, but I
Oh,
wanted to make
sweetheart,
that
you
like
live
a
out there.
bonus.
That's like a Los Angeles person saying I've never been to Disneyland. I mean,
No,
seriously.
I know it really is. Well, you can't do everything at once. You have to save stuff, right? So,
Well,
no, but I want to do We want to do an office field trip there.
Yeah, no, the Integratron has to rank on the top of anyone's list for hippy dippy, it could only exist here kind of thing, right? If anybody
that's
wants
right
to know,
up our alley.
yeah, right. I'll put a link to the Integratron in our show notes, just so you know what I'm talking
Absolutely.
about. But let's just
Yeah.
say communicating with aliens is involved. Okay, seriously.
Yep. You can't do that everywhere, so yeah.
No, you can't. Anyway, that aside, let's talk about real estate, not the
Yes,
aliens.
sure.
So let's just kind of talk, because I noticed that there's a huge difference in culture for what I think of as the Joshua Tree side of Coachella Valley versus the kind of urbane, tourist inflected culture that I found in Palm Springs itself.
Well, and Joshua Tree is not really Coachella Valley, so that's actually considered the high desert. I mean, we service that area, but that's even it's a bit remote from the Coachella Valley. So the main difference, I think, up in the high desert, it's very spread out. It's much more rustic. There's not a whole lot up. I mean, it's very cool. A lot of people. There's definitely you tend to get people that really want quiet and peace and alone time. There's not a whole lot to do up there, but people love it. The Joshua Tree Park is great to go hiking in. The stars are wonderful at night. There's no traffic, but it's out there. We've had people that think that's what they want, and then they move out there and they're like, we're kind of bored or lonely out. Not for everybody, but there's definitely a market for that. And I could see, we've had people in the film industry that just want to escape people and chill out and unplug, and that's a great place to do that. And there's a great, there is some entertainment. There's Pappy and Harriet's is up there. I don't know if you get a chance to go see that. That's a great venue for live music up in Pioneer Town, and they get, like, Paul McCartney was there during Coachella a year or two ago, and they really get good talent up there. It's a lot of fun, but that's like the biggest venue that they have up there.
Right, and then I noticed like La Quinta and Rancho Mirage seems to be rather upper end.
Well, so in general, like Palm Springs, we have the international notoriety. I mean, that's, it's definitely a tourist destination, but it's not just that. It's got there's a lot going on. There's a lot of new hotels and resorts going in. They just approved this huge arena that's going in downtown, which would be great for music venues. We'll have our own ice hockey team, which is kind of hard to believe, but all our Canadians would probably love that. So, but there's just a lot of development going on. They're redoing the downtown, and it really just has a village type atmosphere to it. As you go down valley, it kind of changes. You get Rancho Mirage and Palm Desert tend to be a lot of gated golf communities in all different price ranges. From you can get a nice country club condo in the 200s, or be well over $1 million in a really exclusive gated neighborhood type of thing. So, generally speaking, I mean, we all have our biases to each, but down valley, sometimes we consider that more like the Orange County of the Coachella Valley. It's you're going to get more of your big box shopping. There's a Westville Mall. There's also El Paseo, which is kind of like our version of Rodeo Drive, for very high-end shopping. The Apple Store is there, so that's good to have that. But it's a different culture than Palm Springs. Tends to be more individual boutiques. I mean, we're starting to get more franchises in, but it just has a different flavor to it than you do down valley. So it depends what you're looking for. Definitely if you're more into the golf culture, the country club culture, you're probably going to skew more towards the other, the Palm Desert area more so than Palm Springs. But Palm Springs has a lot of culture going on. There's a big art scene there. Obviously, we're known for architecture. There's a lot going on with that as well. We have one of the most well-known small museums in the country, the Desert Art Museum. So, I think there's a lot more cultural things to do in Palm Springs itself more so than down. Of course, some people will totally disagree with me, but in general.
It
I
sounds
think
like Palm Springs is a good mix of boutique, very soulful lifestyle, as
yeah,
a lot of things to do.
yeah, it really is. And it's more of a walking downtown, I think, more so like, I don't even, like Rancho Mirage doesn't really have a downtown.
Okay.
Palm Desert, like I said, they do have the Alpha Sale, but it's more of a mall culture type of thing, I'd say.
So talk to me about, living in the desert. I mean, it gets really hot there because, desert.
Yep.
So let's talk about how you deal with the weather. Let's talk about utility costs. I mean, that could get
Sure.
pretty spendy, right?
It's it's a desert. So people say it doesn't get hot there yet. It does. So,
Well,
and there are definitely people that love the heat. I'm not a huge fan of the heat. So if you can travel, that's the best time to travel is get away in August and September. Those are our hottest months, but you learn to adapt. And so you tend to do stuff in the morning, do your exercise in the morning, running around, and when the sun's not out. And once the sun goes down, it's still hot, but it's not as unbearable, so to speak. So I mean, it's really lovely at night to entertain on your patio or balconies in the evening. We're nothing to uh, for the heat. So if you go to restaurants, they're all going to have misters. Everybody has air conditioning, and so the city is made to tolerate the heat. I mean, it can get really hot going from your car to the market, to a supermarket or something.
sure.
You feel like you might pass out, but you try to plan your trips after the sun goes down. But that's really only a couple months out of the year. Most of the, I was in Pasadena and it got really hot there too, and I have my air conditioner on, probably 4, 5, 6 months out of the year as well. So I do think your utility costs are going to be higher in the summer, mostly. Obviously in the winter, so you might turn your heater on a little bit, but not all that much.
Right.
But
So
that's probably the biggest
so
expense if
for
you're
a
going to have
2,000 square foot house, let's just say,
two
what would
thousand.
I'm sorry?
I didn't hear you. You cut
I
out
said,
there.
so for a 2,000 square foot house, just as
Uh-huh.
kind of a middle of the road thing, how
Yeah.
much would you expect to spend for your electricity bill in the summer?
So that's a good question, and it's really going to vary if you have a mid-century house compared to a house that's a newer house, because
Okay.
we're known for mid-century houses and they're beautiful and they're wonderful, but they weren't really made for summer living, so they won't have insulation.
Okay.
They have the thin roof lines, but there's no attic or anything like that. So I've had some of the mid-century homes that I know of that people, they can spend $1,000 a month on electric in the summertime. But and most of us have pools, so you're also running the pool pump and all of that. But
Right.
probably a basic newer house would probably be half of that, I would think.
Okay.
Especially I love solar as well. I mean, that's huge.
Right. I was going
Obviously,
to
we have
ask,
a lot
how
of sun.
common is solar electricity?
It's very common, and I think it's even mandatory on all new houses have
That is
to have
true.
solar too as
That's a
well. So
California law. Yeah.
yeah, I think so. So we're seeing more and more of it. A lot of people have solar. Really, it
Mhm.
makes sense here. But so that that's I think that you'll find it's probably the biggest. Your utilities are probably going to be higher here than they would be in your area, I would
Okay.
guess.
All right. All right. Cool. So,
But your house will be half the cost. So
I'm
it
sorry.
should make up.
What did you say?
I said, but the price of your house should be half the cost probably of what
Well,
it is.
yeah. there, there is that. Um,
Yeah.
so, people buy out in your area for different reasons than they buy here, obviously. So I'm guessing things like schools and public transportation are maybe not as big of a deal, but is there anything you want to share with us about that?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me that. And I have to say, it's very rare that I have people that ask me about the school districts. So I
Yeah, I
don't know,
think so.
honestly, I don't know a whole lot about them. And usually, there's so many websites that people can check to see how
Right,
they're rated.
right.
I don't have kids
So is it
myself.
fair to say then that the people who are buying out in your area are either second home or retirees?
It is that's a big market, but it's not just retiree. You're also getting people that are buying now, and we have a really strong vacation rental market here. So you
Mhm.
get a lot of people buying now with the intention of, as an investment, they'll use the home a couple times a year and rent it out the rest of the time. So, where they're not living here per se, if it's a younger family, they don't really is concerned about the schools, because the kids don't live here full time. So I do, I have a number of agents that have kids that go through the school system. They seem to think it's great. And there's a number of private schools around as well. So I know we have schools. I know we have kids. I always see them all the parade.
Is it fair to say then that your area is really friendly to VRBO and Airbnb and vacation rental businesses of that sort?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Is your area very friendly towards the VRBO, Airbnb type model?
Right. So a couple of the cities like Palm Desert have banned vacation rentals. Cathedral City is talking about, I don't know where they're at. I know they were discussing banning vacation rentals. We had a referendum vote in Palm Springs. They tried to vote it out, but that didn't pass. It lost by a landslide. So it's a huge business for Palm Springs. It generates a ton of income from the occupancy tax on that too. So it's, a lot of people do that. It's, it's very lucrative, and it helps our business as real estate, because it makes sense. You're buying a property and you're not using it all year long. You can still rent it out and help pay your expenses by renting it out.
Okay. So if someone were coming out from this area, and let's say that their priority was a smart investment, so
Sure.
that would be something that they would be able to rent it out when they're not occupying it. Maybe they're not ready to retire full time, but they think they're going to want to do that, right?
Right.
And let's just say that they want to be a little bit of an outlier. They don't necessarily need to be where all the popular kids are there in Palm Springs, but they want to buy in the next best community, right? People are always wanting to know, what do the locals think the next best community is?
That's really interesting, because so you have to look at it like, say if they're looking to rent it out as well, you have to be really concerned about the neighborhood, because some of the lower price, I don't know if you're hearing this, it looks like we got
I am.
Okay, because some of the maybe more affordable areas may not be areas that you're going to be able to rent homes out there. Right. So we get, so that's kind of a detailed question. So if you say you were looking for something that you wanted to rent out and make a decent income, it's a single family home. Single family homes will rent year round, whereas condos are usually seasonal. They'll usually rent definitely January through March, but you might get a couple of shoulder months too. But if you're looking for a single family home and say you want mid-century, you're probably looking around $700,000 for something that's done, ready to go, that you won't have to, which, it's very hard to get work done here if you're not living here. So that's usually what we would recommend. Buy something that's, relatively turnkey. So you're looking around 700,000, but that might generate, depending on how well you market it, 50 to 60,000 a year as a rental. So if you're looking for up and coming areas, like, where's the best spot? I mean, actually right now, where I think has a huge potential is Desert Hot Springs, which is it's about 10 miles north of Palm Springs. Mm-hmm. It's always kind of gotten a bad reputation, but I mean, they're really working hard, and there's some cool little communities up there. And if you're really on a budget, you can probably get a nice house for under $300,000 up there.
Really,
you're not too far from Palm Springs, and there's nice neighborhoods up there.
Right.
So that's a good value. I think also if you really like mid-century and you're priced out of the Palm Springs market, you can get so much more for your money in Palm Desert as well. So, but you can't rent it out. That's a drawback in Palm Desert.
Okay, got it. Got it. Do you need to get that?
Hang on 1 second. Sorry about that. Okay.
No worries. So we've talked a little bit about what's changing in your neighborhood, like the rules and attitudes around Airbnb. Is there anything else that's really changing in your neighborhood and your towns right now?
There's not major change other than just the growth, really. And we really are starting to attract a younger crowd. The with the onset of the Coachella Music Festival, obviously that attracts a much younger crowd.
Right.
Palm Springs has just been put on the radar more. It's getting more attention. We're getting more international press, and as far as that goes, I mean that helps. And we, when I first came here 20 years ago, I used to joke you could shoot a cannonball down Palm Canyon Drive and not hit anything.
Right.
Now we're starting to see we're more year round.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be the restaurants would close in the summertime because it was hard to stay open, but hardly anybody. They may close a couple weeks in the summer, but usually they stay open. And we're getting some really cool places or new speakeasies opening up, wine bars. Medical marijuana dispensary clubs.
Good Lord, it sounds like the hipsters are coming to your town.
Yeah. so it's just there's a lot living here. Actually, it's exciting, and even though I've been here this long, there's always new stuff happening, and so it's fresh and it's not boring at all. And there's a new the last 2 years they had the Desert X exhibition, which is an international art exhibition with if you're into that, great installations all over the desert, which are really unique. And then we have the whole Modernism Week thing that's grown to I think we get over 100,000 people that come to town every for that. And
that's crazy.
Just great lectures, tours, features and things going on, marketplaces and things. So it's exciting. It's a fun place to live.
So I saw in your Facebook feed that you had developed, like, what is it, a tiny home or a prefab home community?
Yeah. So my background is actually architecture. So I had a developer came to me a couple of years ago and said, "Hey, do you want to sell mobile homes?" And I'm like, "Well, not really." But he said, "Well, I'm doing this mobile home park. We have 100 lots. Do you want to do something?" I'm like, "Sure, let's do something fun like tiny homes." And so I had to kind of sell them on that. And we worked on trying to find the manufacturer. So we did all the design work for that. We ended up designing them ourselves because we couldn't find the right product. And that's been really successful. So I think we're probably the only community like this in the country right now, where we took an old mobile home park, we infilling all the homes with kind of modern prefab homes is what they are. So we've sold about 80 homes in the last 2 years. So we're almost done. We have about 20 more to go.
Oh my goodness.
And that's been great for people actually a lot of people that already live here that have the pool homes and the big homes with yards and stuff to maintain, that just want to downsize and live more minimally and lock and leave and travel more. So and then we've got some first-time buyers, we've got some snowbirds, people from Canada living here. But it's been a fun project because it's something it's a different housing type that's available to people. Whereas most of the new homes that are being developed are 2 stories and 2,500 square feet, zero lot line type of thing, and a lot much higher price point. We're usually under 250,000. Most new homes in the area start around 600,000 to 700,000.
Wow. Okay, so the tiny homes are under 250, and yeah. And last time I was there biking around, I think I stumbled on a new build. I think it was 1,500 square foot, and they wanted, I think, 8 something for it. It's like, wow.
Yeah. I don't. Must be what builders feel the typical buyer is. They all start around 2,000 square feet, and a lot of 2 stories, which doesn't do too well in the desert. Especially if it's people looking to retire, they don't want to do stairs. And it's also a lot more expensive to heat a second level too. But that's what as land gets more expensive, that seems to be what they're building nowadays in Palm Springs itself.
Sounds like you're going through some development pains there.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, there's a lot. As you go, as you go towards Indio, towards the outskirts areas, and again, Desert Hot Springs as well. The prices drop. But if you're going to be right in the core of Palm Springs, you're looking at more denser housing. But we have a whole new development that's in the north part of town that's under construction for like 2,200 homes, and it's built around this olive orchard, and they're cultivating the olives, making oil, and selling it to help pay for the HOA fees. It's kind of an interesting concept, but
Okay.
that'll be, that should open probably next year. That's coming up too.
Oh my
But
goodness.
those
So
are
all
pricing.
all kinds of
Yeah.
things going on out
Yeah.
there. So I usually ask this question because, as you know, I'm interviewing people across the country, and every area has their own natural disaster that happens on, a somewhat regular basis. I don't want to assume that I know what yours is. So what do you guys deal with?
What would it be? Yeah, we kind of live on a fault zone here.
Okay, so
um,
same as what we deal with, right? That,
yeah, it's, the San Andreas Fault runs down the mid. We're in a valley, it's in the middle of the valley. Oddly enough, we do the natural hazard reports, and they note that we're in a earthquake area, but not Palm Springs itself. It never comes up that it's right on the fault zone. So
Hmm.
and I think I've heard different things. I'm an expert, but being on sand, there's not as much movement, I guess, if there is an earthquake. So it's just in California, it's one of the things that we deal with. And
Right.
the good news in your area too, it's supposed to be the stick-built homes, your traditional wood frame construction to do the best in earthquakes.
Yeah, actually.
We don't have any that comes out here, so
I mean, my perception is that Palm Springs does not have the threats that we're used to here. The wildfires that get out of control, and when
yeah,
a quake happens,
you know,
you don't have the big towers and stuff to come tumbling down. So
no, yeah, you don't have that, and we do have. There have been a few wildfires up on the mountains, but it's all desert brush, so it burns really fast. So there's not
right,
a lot of fuel. So there's been a few homes threatened, but I know when I lived in San Fernando Valley, it's like almost every year we had to
right,
evacuate in Chatsworth because there was a fire. So we don't have that threat as much, which is a good
yeah,
thing.
it seems like
And
it's a
as
lot.
far as earthquake, you if you're smart, hopefully we all have our earthquake kits and water and supply, and it, it is something we have to deal with, but most of it is where
So I have a question for you that was not on my list, but I think I'm
I am.
going
Okay.
to add it. And that question is, what other things that real estate agents or really anybody in your area, what they don't tell potential buyers that they really should?
Mhm.
Salespeople have a tendency to gloss over shit and like, oh, yeah, everything is all rainbows and unicorns here. Don't worry. What are some things that you
Well,
think people should know? I'm not saying
there's
necessarily negative. I'm just looking for real truth.
yeah. I mean we touched on it. The heat, it's hot in the summer. It's not comfortable. There's no doubt about it. You just if you can make other plans, get out of town. That's the best thing. But
Right.
it's not totally unbearable. The other thing, there's certain parts of the desert that tend to be windier than others. If you're in the north part of, I mean, you get wind at all times of the year, different times of the year, everywhere you live in the desert. It's just
Mhm.
part of the wind's climate. But there are some areas that do get more wind than others, and it's seasonal. Like, and it's usually as we're getting into the hotter months and right as we're starting to cool down. So right now we just finished a windier period, but so you want your agent to tell you about those neighborhoods. You should, some people hate the wind, and I mean, I've always lived in a windy area, so it doesn't bother me. But I'm definitely, I've heard buyers in the past say, "Oh, my agent never told me about that." It's like, it's such a common thing, but
Right.
uh, you know, it's windy enough where you're definitely not going to be reading a book out by your pool, and
Okay.
we won't. The joke is you won't have umbrellas because they become airborne weapons. So you don't have umbrellas, and always get heavy pool furniture. I mean, even my own house, I had my barbecue get blown into the pool.
Wow.
Sounds like first
Okay.
world problems, but it does happen. So, that's an issue. And in the windier areas, the house is probably going to be a little more affordable. So it goes back to, when people are looking at the Zillow or Trulia, Realtor.com, and they see stuff, issues like that, they aren't going to know about that just by reading the descriptions. And, not to give us a little bit of a plug. That's why you want a
Yeah.
qualified agent that really knows the area.
Right.
even, we get a lot of LA agents that want to sell in Palm Springs who don't really know it. There's areas in Palm Desert that are Rancho Mirage, excuse me, that are, $1 million neighborhoods, but they're right under the flight path. And you might not realize that, if you're just coming looking in town. So that, make sure you have specifics in your neighborhood too.
Oh yeah, that's exactly the kind of stuff I was looking for, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So issues like that. There's some issues there's two different, um, uh, down power district, real water district, I think it's called. It's down valley, but their power charges are less than Southern California Edison. So if you're really budget minded, you might want to be in the Imperial District instead of the Edison District.
And what towns in the Imperial District? Like, as an example.
I think they call it the Imperial. I don't know why they would call it the water district. I sell so little in the down valley area where that is.
Okay.
I don't know the exact. I do know that some people are really concerned about being in that area.
So down valley would be what kind of communities? Because I'm hazy.
Indio, Thousand Palms, not La Quinta, and I don't think La Quinta's in that, but
okay.
It's more the eastern edge of the valley.
Okay, all right, cool.
And that's something you'll find too. You've been looking here is there's about 600,000 people in the whole valley, and some agents specializes in different parts. It's like it'd be like you selling in Manhattan Beach. That's not necessarily your territory.
Right.
So it's like, if somebody comes to me and says, I want to buy La Quinta, I don't know too much about La Quinta. So I'd refer them to one of the agents on my team that sells more in there. So,
right.
So that's something to note when they're looking in Palm Springs. We'll often ask, well, where do you want to live? And many times people don't know because they really don't understand how big it is. But you want to get an agent that focuses on a specific neighborhood, or not neighborhood, more of a specific city than the other one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be reasonable for a Los Angeles person to just assume, it's a desert agent. They can do everything, right?
Yeah, well, in most out of area agents that, you're in LA, and it's like, well, for $1 million listing, I might go to drive down to the valley, and we get, we deal with that a lot, and it's like, we realize how much that they don't know. Just like me, if I were trying to, I bought a house in Pasadena a couple of years ago. I didn't represent myself. I hired someone because I don't know all the ins and outs of Pasadena. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, preaching to the choir here about that one, Paul, for sure.
Yeah.
So, which leads me to
the
right. Don't you dare! You stay out of my town. Although actually, it's not true. I think it'd be really cool to have you here.
Someday. I love. I'm from that area originally, so I like that area.
Come on over, babe. We got a great brokerage. Yeah. So, what would you think would be a super intelligent question for someone to ask an agent in your area? I mean, obviously anybody listening to this recording, you should work with Paul and his team. He has people that specialize in probably all the various communities you're interested in. But just for, academic sake, what do you think would be a good question to ask a prospective agent?
Again, it's more so trying to figure out what it is that you want. Why are you moving to the desert? And it's just, are you moving into just one second home that's low maintenance, or I think that's more us asking them. It's like, is it all you're going to retire in, or what do you foresee your lifestyle to be? And because so many people don't really, and they see Palm Canyon, and the biggest request is we want to be able to walk to Palm Canyon. It's like, that's great if you have over $1 million to spend, because that most of the houses around Palm Canyon are going to be in that price range, a few condos. But I think that's the biggest thing that you want to work with your agent to help narrow down what exactly it is that you want. And maybe you don't know, that happens too. Like you might not know if you want to be in Palm Desert or Palm Springs, but talk to the agent and find out, ask the questions that you've asked. What's the difference between the different communities? What can I expect my lifestyle to be like there, if you're not there?
So it almost sounds like a good tack to take would be any agent that you have your initial conversation with. Is that agent trying to find out what's best for me, or just show me the house I said I wanted to see? Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's, I've only worked in Palm Springs, so I don't know what a regular market is, but it's not like, it's rare that, hey, we're a growing family, we need a 4-bedroom house, we were in a 3-bedroom house. That's usually not the type of buyer that we're getting. It's mostly, it's going to be out of area. So not that there's always a one size fits all for anybody, but
Right,
it's
exactly.
a little more, complex, and especially, I think people coming from, there's always a trust issue, like, if you don't live up here, how do you know you're using a good ticket or not? So, it's always like, ask them what experience they mean, in the market. How well do they know the market? So if
Right.
your agent's going to be your resource for buying here, you just want to make sure they have the background and knowledge for the area that you're looking.
That's awesome. Well, I think we've pretty much used up all our time, so I wanted to sign off and to say thank you. You
Yeah.
are Paul Kaplan with Kaplan Real Estate. Is that the full name of your company?
Paul Kaplan Group of Indianville Homes. So yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. And all your contact information is going to be on the show notes down below. If you have any questions, if you want to explore if Palm Springs and the Coachella Valley is the best place for you to retire, please reach out to him or reach out to me, and we'll make sure we get your questions answered. So I'm Kendall Young, broker and owner of Diggs. It's been so much fun, as always, talking with you, my friend. And I look forward to the next time that you and I can have lunch together.
Well, thanks, Kendall. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Take care.